I want to welcome you to the 6th presentation in 2009. We've had 5 already, and we have another few to go for the rest of the year. So I welcome you, and I thank you for coming. I so appreciate you being here, and thank yourself, because it takes a lot of extra time and effort to spend time with me today. And I really do believe that we are here for a reason, and the reason why we're here is not for me just to give you information. It's really to call forth the greatness in each other, isn't it? We're all here together in order to help each other. That's why we're really here. It's not just me giving you information. It's really that flow of information coming back to me. And if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here tonight. So I want to thank you for being here and for making my life and my passion and my mission so worthwhile. It's people like you that that keep me going, you know, in the hours that I work on these kinds of presentations. So I welcome you. I want to start off with, I should first introduce myself to those of you that don't know me. I'm Dr. Leslie Van Romer. I've been a chiropractor in Sequim for over 30 years now. It used to be when I first started and people would come into my practice, and I was there for a year or 2 or 3 or 5, and people would ask me how long I was in practice for, because I started when I was 27 or 28 years old. I sort of avoided the question, and now I avoid the question again, except on the other end of things. So I feel privileged to be in Sequim. I just love Sequim, and I started out as a chiropractor, and I still am a chiropractor. That's really my first passion. I thought really my only passion as far as work goes, but as it turns out, I love the phrase, man plans and God giggles. I was really pulled into giving presentations, and I guess it was a natural course of things for me to work on myself, because I was a healthcare professional, and it just seemed like a natural thing for me to work on myself. And I ate better and better and exercised every day, and I had 3 children, and it just so happened one of my children was overweight, and so that called me to giving more and more presentations and health motivational kinds of presentations, and also working on specifically on weight loss. And it's not weight loss, is it? It's really learning how to eat correctly. It's not just learning how to lose weight. You can take chemotherapy and lose weight. That's pretty easy. But we're really trying to nurture ourselves and take care of ourselves and nourish ourselves correctly. So I'm honored to stand up here in front of you. I'd like to start off with a little poem. And this sort of sets the tone for what we're doing. We have a lot of information tonight. I'm just barely touching the surface. There's a lot of books out there and articles. This is just one of the reams of articles that I have at home, in my little office at home, and this is just on heart disease. Doesn't count anything else. So you can imagine how much information there is out there. So if you don't believe what I have to say, and I challenge you not to believe me, research it yourself and start looking and reading and reading and reading and reading. And after a while, you're going to come to the same conclusions that I come to, and the most universally simple and most brilliant principles are the simplest, aren't they? And so as we talk about cancer and heart disease and diabetes and stroke, really, I could give this class in probably 20 seconds. Except that just is not that impressive for human beings, is it? It's not that inspirational, that motivational, that informational. But in the 20 seconds, I would say, in order to prevent those kinds of diseases or to control or keep those diseases in check if you already have those, there are 2 keys. And that's diet and exercise. And the most important part of our diet, we all know. Which foods prevent cancer? Fruits and vegetables. Which foods prevent diabetes type 2? Fruits and vegetables. Which foods prevent cancer? Fruits and vegetables. Which foods prevent heart disease? Fruits and vegetables. What about stroke? Fruits and vegetables. So the question remains, why don't we center our days on fruits and vegetables and other whole plant foods? The answer is simple. We weren't taught to. We weren't taught to. So we have to relearn this. And it's not easy, is it? Is it easy? No, it's not easy. It's really simple. The process is simple, especially if you have a simple plan. But it's not easy to make those changes into our lives because we're conditioned a certain way. 'Twas a dangerous cliff, as they freely confess, though to walk near its edge was so pleasant. But over its edge had fallen a duke, and had fooled many a peasant. The people said something would have to be done, but opinions did not all tally. Some said, put a fence round the edge of the cliff. Others said, an ambulance down in the valley. The lament of the crowd was profound and loud as their hearts overflowed with pity, but the ambulance carried the vote of the day as it spread to the neighboring cities. A collection was made to accumulate aid, and dwellers on highway and alley gave dollars and cents, not to furnish a fence, but an ambulance down in the valley. For the cliff is all right if you're careful, they said, and if folks ever trip and are sliding, it's not the slipping and falling that hurts, but the shock where below they're colliding. And so for years, as these mishaps occurred, quick forth would the rescuers sally to pick up the victims who fell from the cliff with the ambulance down in the valley. Now, one made the plea, it's a marvel to me that you'd give so much greater attention to repairing results than to curing the cause when you might much better aim at prevention. The mischief, of course, should be stopped at its source. Come, friends and neighbors, let's rally. It makes much more sense to rely on a fence than an ambulance down in the valley. He's wrong in his head, the majority said. He dismisses our earnest endeavor. He's the kind that would shirk this responsible work, but we will support it forever. Aren't we picking up all just as fast as they fall and giving them care so liberally? A superfluous fence is of no consequence if the ambulance works in the valley. Do you get it? That's our country, isn't it? You know, it's so dramatic, and it's so heroic, and it costs so much money to have an ambulance down the valley to pick up the pieces after we are broken. And who broke us? We broke us, for the most part. But this is the most challenging presentation. Of all the presentations I give, and I give many, this is the most challenging one because, to me, it's the most emotional one, because we all know people who have died or have, or we may have, cancer and heart disease and stroke and type 2 diabetes. And so when you really get connected into those people that we've lost or that have it now or that we have it now, it's really an emotional kind of presentation. And I would love for that to happen to you. Because when we get emotional with something, sometimes we're more motivated to do something. So on the back of your handouts, I take it back. On the front of your handouts, turn it over. On the front of your handouts, I want you to write two things. Number one, give me one person, that's all I want, is one person who you want to stay alive for besides yourself. Give me one person who you want to stay alive for besides yourself. And write that person's name down the top. Not 18 grandchildren. It's hard, but pick one. And focus on that one, because our brains do much better with simple. Let's focus on one. And then the second thing to write down is the one action step. So number 2, you're going to write down, I can do that, colon. And you're going to fill that in by the end of the class. So you've already filled in the first one if you've done your job. And the second one is, I can do that. So that's your one action step that you know that you can do, and you're going to follow through on. The one you know you can do and follow through on, no slip-ups. You're going to do it no matter what. So think of one. Our brains like to wrap around one thing. 3 things at the most, but certainly not all the things that I'm going to give you tonight. So let's start with that. The United States of America is the healthiest nation on earth. Is that a true statement? How do you know that? All you have to do is look around. All you have to do is listen to what people talk about. All you have to do is listen to the sickness and the disease. We know we're not the healthiest nation on earth. Yet we spend $2 trillion on health care. $2 trillion, which is almost half of what the whole world spends on health care. Yet we're ranked by the World Health Organization as being number 36 in the world. Yet we spend all that money on what we call health care. It's really more disease care, isn't it? I want to share this with you. As stated in a recent U.S. News and World Report, Americans spend approximately $2 trillion a year on health care. $2 trillion. To understand the magnitude of this outrageous expenditure, consider this. If you individually spent $2.5 million a day since the birth of Christ, you would not add up to $2 trillion. Whew. I'm not very good with numbers, but that makes sense to me. Sadly, this fuels an economic crisis and burden that is remarkably avoidable, especially when you consider this study. It suggests that 75% of this money is being spent on chronic medical conditions that are preventable by healthy lifestyle choices. And who is responsible for those healthy lifestyle choices? We are. That's the glitch. We're the ones that are responsible for that. Let's look at some statistics. Heart disease and cancer. 4 out of 5 of you in this room will die of heart disease or cancer. So if we take a small group like this, you guys are okay. You might get diabetes or stroke or something else. But everybody else is going to die of heart disease or cancer. 4 out of 5 of you in this room statistically will die because of one of those diseases. Heart disease alone kills over 1 million people. Now it's 1.25 million people, or at least 50% of us. Heart attacks. There's at least 4,000 heart attacks a day. Look at this here. 4,000 a day. 50% of those are fatal. And half of the fatal heart attacks, their first symptom is, what do you think? Death. Death. No pain. No symptoms to speak of. They might have got a funny test, but they're not in tune with that. So a lot of people who die from fatal heart attacks have no symptoms. The death is the first symptom. And women, we get heart attacks later than the men, but more women who have heart attacks are fatal. So they're more serious when women get them. Yet we're more scared of cancer, aren't we? Breast cancer. Maybe 50, 55,000 of us die from breast cancer. Over 500,000 women die from heart attacks and heart disease. So it's way more to fear that than it is cancer. But interestingly enough, it doesn't matter which you fear. If you take care of yourself, period, then everything else sort of goes away. The diseases go away. You don't have to worry about them. Number 1 killer of women is not breast cancer. More women die of heart disease than all cancers combined. There's one statistic, like 1 in 8 women or 1 in 7 women will develop breast cancer at some point. But what most women don't realize is that they actually have far more fear from heart disease, which will strike 1 out of every 3. More than 500,000 women die every year of this killer disease. I think it's relatively extraordinary. Some more statistics. Cancer, 1 out of 3 of us die of cancer. Breast cancer, 1 out of 7 or 1 out of 8, depending on what source you use. Diabetes is now up to 300,000 of us die from type 2 diabetes. That is a lifestyle disease. That's a lifestyle disease. It's not, like diabetes 1 is a whole other thing. It's an autoimmune disease. But diabetes 2, if you have it, you've given it to yourself. Hypertension, more than 24%, and it's now up to 30% of us have hypertension. Hypertension is high blood pressure. Overweight, more than 61 to 85%. There's more than 400,000 deaths. These were done several years ago. More than 400,000 deaths due directly to overweight or obesity. 26 to 30% of us are obese. Now it's 33%. Obese means that you're about 30 pounds overweight. You have a BMI of about 30, and it gets worse from there. Overweight. Being overweight causes more than 400 deaths a year, 100,000 deaths a year, and it has to do with all these diseases and more, and of course we know that. This is sort of redundant. That's what's interesting about this, isn't it? We know it. Don't we know this? Then why don't we do something about it? Isn't that the question? And we know the information. So as I gather the information, I spent hours doing this, I'm thinking, you know all this stuff. So now all we have to do is get down and dirty with it and get connected in with it and realize that we are not the one that is not going to get it. We are going to get it unless we do something about it. You have to start now. And many of you, as you get older, you're on the accelerated course. You can't take your leisure time like I did 30 years in order to work up to this lifestyle. You need to jump into it now if you choose to health. If you don't care about being healthy, if you don't care about dying younger, if you don't care about getting diabetes and stroke and cancer and those kinds of things, then it's okay. Then you go the path you're going. So overweight has something to do with what? Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, colon, breast, uterine cancer, other cancers too, stroke and arthritis, digestive disorders, all kinds of different things. The trick is, though, you can't buy your health, no matter how rich we are. Look how rich the United States is. Look at the technology we have. Look at the doctors we have. Look at all the advancements around us. Are the statistics better? No, they keep getting worse. So that means we need to do something about it. We must earn it. You can't buy it. Our biggest killer is this. It's really disease of excess. The disease of excess. The only thing we don't do excess in is fruits and vegetables and exercise. I never heard of anybody doing an excessive amount of exercise. But we do excessively eat the wrong foods. We do that in excess. So all these diseases have something to do with the disease of excess. And many of us in our brains say, what? That's not me. I do what? I eat in moderation. We eat in moderation. If you're ever wondering whether you really truly do eat in moderation, look in the mirror. Are you eating in moderation? If you're truly eating in moderation, then you're certainly going to show it. We really don't have to go further than that. We don't have to look at people around us. We don't have to scoff at someone because they happen to be 100 pounds overweight and we only happen to be 25 pounds overweight. That's not what this is all about. This is all about taking responsibility for yourself. You look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and say, whoa, do I eat in moderation? I don't know if you do or not. Look in the mirror and you find out. If you want to get really brave, you can take your clothes off. Find out. But this is proof that in the United States, we don't eat in moderation. 51% of the calories consumed in the United States are refined and processed foods. That's all the packaged, labeled, breads, I mean, all those things, 51% refined and processed. And we know what happens to the nutritional value, and the calories go up and the nutritional value goes down. 42% is dairy and animal products. Dairy and animal products. And only 7% are 7% fruits and vegetables. Yet we all know that fruits and vegetables are what prevent these diseases. Why is it such a small percentage? Now, the funny part of that number 2 is that half of the vegetables, so 7% are fruits and vegetables, half of the vegetables are potatoes, and half of the potatoes are French fries and potato chips. So, you know, we're just not getting it. We're not getting it that someday disease will be you if we don't do something about it now. This is, after the disease of excess, the most common disease is one that you don't hear about that much. We don't really understand it. We're going to talk about that first. That's atherosclerosis. And what is that? It's the disease of the arteries. And the arteries happen to go to all parts of your body. We have, you know, I've read this number, and I've read it again this weekend, and I don't get it, but I keep reading it in different sources. We have 60,000 miles of blood vessels in our bodies. It's 3,000 miles across the country. Does that make sense to anybody? Doesn't make sense to me. But even if we have a mile of blood vessels in our bodies, and it's not 60,000, even though the number is 60,000, if we have atherosclerosis, it affects your blood vessels in all parts of your body. So that means you're having diseased blood vessels in your brain. What causes diseased blood vessels in your brain? I mean, what does it cause? Stroke. In your heart, myocardial infarction. In our feet, you know, you have neuropathy. We get neuropathy. What about our kidneys? You get heart failure. What about your penises? And that's why we get impotence, because it goes everywhere. What about your eyes? Macular degeneration. So we might manifest those diseases in different ways because we're different people, but the bottom line is it's the same. And that's atherosclerosis. We need to take care of our bodies. We need to take care of our veins and our arteries, and we need to take care of our hearts. Now, this is the process that happens. This is a blood vessel here. And it has 3 layers. You have the outer layer of a blood vessel, and then you have the inner layer like this. And then what happens in atherosclerosis, you get the inner lining. So the inner lining, let's say up here, the inner lining gets damaged by those things that damage the inner lining, like the bad food, like animal protein, like trans fats, like hydrogenated fat, like coffee, sugar, salt, all those kinds of things. They hurt our artery walls on the inside. And then you get these little pimples. This collects cholesterol and fat. Cholesterol and fat collects here. So if you can see what the artist did, he brought up the lining up here, and then it's sort of like a pimple that's created here. This is the blood flow. You see? This is the blood flow. And what happens is, in a heart attack, 95% of heart attacks are caused by little tiny blood vessels that you can't see. Only 5% are caused by the major blood vessels that they do bypasses on. Only 5%. 95% of heart attacks and strokes are caused by little tiny blood vessels that you cannot pick up in any test. And so what happens to this little pimple, like in your, and there's millions of these in your blood vessels, they burst and then they clot. They burst and they clot, like a pimple. Burst and they clot. Ultimately, if they clot too much, they cut off the blood vessel. You can't get blood vessel oxygen or nutrients to wherever it is in your body, and bingo, that's a stroke, and that's 95% of the heart attacks. This is absolutely reversible. It is reversible. And it showed, Dean Ornish showed that. There's several doctors that have shown that. So in order for it to be reversible, that means we have to do the right things. In order to do the right things, we have to eat correctly, and the part of that, too, is exercise. These are 95% of the heart attacks, these little tiny blood vessels. If all stretched out, you have 60,000 miles of blood vessels in your body. Your diet will affect the health of every inch of every vessel from your scalp to the soles of your feet. If you bathe the arteries with unhealthy blood, which results from an unhealthy diet, and the vessel walls will stiffen within minutes. Minutes. Olive oil does that too, by the way. Over weeks to months, streaks of fat accumulate in the walls. As the disease rages on, the walls sometimes thicken enough to compromise the flow of blood. And this is what is happening in through here. Many diseases are caused by compromising flow of blood. The effects of the diets are very complex, and the only accurate statement is the rich Western diet is the cause of artery disease, and a diet with fruits and vegetables is the prevention and the cure.
You say olive oil is bad?
Yes, we'll talk about that. Many damaged components of the rich Western diet have been identified, including cholesterol, oils, including olive oil, dairy proteins, animal proteins. I think it's fairly incredible. In here, he also says arteries heal. That's the best part. If we start doing something now, in 3 months, they've shown in studies that arteries can heal. In 3 months, and your age doesn't matter. That's the extraordinary part. If we just wake up to the fact that we need to do something, oh my gosh, in 3 months, your body could be changed from the inside out. But in order to do that, we have to do something about it. Those little pustules that you see are called plaque. That's the plaque. You hear doctors talk about plaque, and we hear it on the news, and we talk about plaque. That's really what plaque is, those little stores inside your 60,000 miles of blood vessels. And whether you get plaque or not depends on whether you're eating cholesterol, animal fat, vegetable, trans fat, and hydrogenated fats, vegetable oils. Animal protein is also the cause of that. Refined carbohydrates, and we know what those are, sugar and white flour and all those refined things that we eat. Coffee, smoking, and lack of exercise. It's amazing what we do to ourselves. I think, I've been doing this for a long time, and I think it's really because we don't connect into the fact that that could be us. We just don't ever think it's going to happen to us. We don't even think it's ever going to happen to us. And then all of a sudden you're sitting across from a doctor and the doctor says you have cancer. And you're like, your world spins out of control. It's probably even hard to hear what the doctor's saying because we just don't think it's going to happen to us. It's going to happen to you. If that doesn't happen to you, heart disease will, or diabetes, or stroke. So you might as well take care of it all right now with how we're eating. Coronary bypass. That is done on the major blood vessels. 4.6 to 11 to 9% of those cause death. 44%, 15 to 40% cause brain damage. I just read a more recent article, and they're estimating almost everybody who has some kind of coronary bypass because of the procedures they have to do are brain damaged in some way. My father had not a coronary bypass, but major heart surgery at the best clinic in the world, and something went wrong and he had to have another one done, and he almost died, but he definitely has brain damage. Other people might not know it, but anybody that knows him knows he has it. Angioplasties. Angioplasties, and when they go and they clean arteries out, like in your carotid arteries, they clean arteries out. There's not any studies that show it prolongs life. And in 5 months, 40% of them are closed because we don't change any of our habits. Am I telling you not to get that? No. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying become aware. Become aware of the information, make smart choices for yourself. The good news, as I said, hearts and arteries heal. In order for them to heal, we need to have a plant-based diet. Does that mean you have to do it 100%? No. But it does mean you have to have a plant-based diet, which means let's wrap our meals around fruits and vegetables, whole grains and beans. Whole grains are not breads. Those are fractured grains. Whole grains are like brown rice and whole oats and beans. But mostly, first the whole fruits and vegetables, and then the other kinds of plant foods. And then, if you still think you need something, then have something else. But let's try to really wrap our meals around the good stuff first. Then if you want to treat once in a while, then have it. Our bodies probably can handle that. But not when we assault ourselves all the time, meal after meal after meal after meal after meal. And we've been doing it since we were 0 years old, just about, for most of us. We need to reverse things and change things, and now's a good time to start. So arteries, our hearts and arteries heal. There's a lot of doctors who have shown that. Plant-based diet, 10% fat. Even if you have white meat and chicken without the skin, it's still 38% fat. Salmon is about 50% fat. So that's pretty high in fat. Zero cholesterol. You want zero cholesterol. The cholesterol, there's just as much cholesterol in chicken as there is in red meat. Even though it's been touted that chicken's better for you. Chicken is not better for you. It's just been touted that it's better for us. But if we start looking at it, it's really not better for us than red meat. And this is versus the American Heart Association diet, which is a proponent of 30% fat. and it also has high in dairy and meat products. Let's talk about cholesterol for a minute. In cholesterol lowering, moderation kills. This is a revelation, I think. If all Americans kept their total cholesterol below 200, as recommended by the American Heart Association, because isn't that sort of the magical number? We get it down to under 200, and then our doctors are kind of sort of happy, and so we're happy too because they're happy. That I hear that all the time in my practice. As recommended by the American Heart Association, millions would develop coronary artery disease. I'll read it again. Even if all Americans kept their total cholesterol below 200, as recommended by the American Heart Association, millions would develop coronary artery disease. The high-fat American diet is responsible for an epidemic of coronary artery disease. A plant-based diet with less than 10% fat will prevent coronary disease from developing, halt the progress of existing disease, and even reverse the disease in many patients. Given proper support and education, motivated patients with a history of coronary disease can follow this diet and prevent future cardiac events. Strong evidence from a wide variety of sources shows that total serum cholesterol levels must be kept below 150. Below 150. If you don't want to get coronary heart disease. If you don't care, it doesn't matter. Remember, this is all a choice. But you start looking at the real stuff, and it's a rude awakening when we think if it's below 100, and many of us don't even have it below 200, and many of us don't even have it below 200 on medications. It's interesting in cholesterol. Remember, cholesterol is different than fat, but both are just important in building up that plaque in the arteries. Cholesterol is like waxy material. Fat is fat. Fat. But the cholesterol is just as important in creating those diseased arteries as the fat is. What's interesting is we keep taking our cholesterol medication, we take it in the morning, and then all day long we keep eating cholesterol. So we take our cholesterol medication in the morning, and then all day long we keep eating cholesterol. Does that even make sense? If we think about it, does it even make sense? But a lot of this stuff is nonsensical because we're just in the habit of eating these kinds of foods. And as we lower it, is it really taking care of what's really going on in the arteries? I think we just need to look at that. This is by Caldwell B. Esselstyn, MD. And this is his book. This is an excellent book to put on your shelf. I have it. You can borrow it, but it's excellent to buy to put on your shelf. And he talks about the study that he has done where he took patients that had severe heart disease, and most of them had very major surgeries, heart surgeries, and he had 23 patients, and how 19 of them, after so many years, I think it's been 8 years, something like that, they've had no cardiac events, when before they had lots of cardiac events. It's extraordinary when we start eating correctly what we can do. So this is an excellent book by Caldwell Esselstyn. This is another one. Do you mend a broken heart? It's a mystery even the most prominent heart doctors would be hard-pressed to solve. Americans now average nearly 500,000 bypass surgeries, more than 1 million angioplasty procedures annually, totaling more than $100 billion in medical costs. Yet as those numbers climb, fueled by technological advances, that's really what fuels it, isn't it? All the technology. And soaring rates of coronary artery disease, doctors and patients worry that the decision to pursue one treatment over another is based more on professional bias and patients' misperception than it is on sound science. Bypass surgery, angioplasty, and non-invasive medical treatments each come with their own cadre of devotees, and members of one camp often don't communicate with members of the other. Meanwhile, this just came out, by the way, in Newsweek. Meanwhile, experts say patients often assume that surgery or angioplasty will help them live longer, even though numerous studies have failed to show any such benefit. Again, am I making a choice for you what to do and what not to do? No. I'm just saying start looking at the evidence. And the ambulance on the valley is not that effective, maybe. Maybe a fence would be more effective. This is another article. Blood vessels improve quickly on a health plan, researchers find. Again, after 3 months, blood vessels heal if we eat correctly. Because we have this illusion that once you have high blood pressure, and once you have atherosclerosis, and once you have heart disease, and once you have bypass surgeries, we sort of kind of give up and think we sort of have to live and die with this. It's not necessarily so. So if we start doing those things now that we need in order to heal our bodies, because our bodies are very self-healing and self-regulating and self-controlling, but we need to nourish it with the right food, and we need to exercise. Here's another one on blood vessels. On blood pressure. Let's go to blood pressure. Hypertension, oftentimes, when we have hypertension, which is high blood pressure, traditionally it's been 140/90. Now the articles that I've read, the most recent articles, say that if your blood pressure is over 120, the top numbers, the systolic is over 120, and the bottom number is over 80, you have high blood pressure. High blood pressure is not a disease unless it becomes a disease. I mean, it can become a disease if it's out of control, obviously. But high blood pressure is a symptom of what? Atherosclerosis. That's kind of what it's a symptom of. It's a symptom. So when we're taking high blood pressure medication, again, I'm not telling you not to take it. I'm just saying when you take high blood pressure medication, does it fix the problem? Does it fix the blood vessels? No, they're still sick, but they're able to artificially lower the blood pressure. Does that mean that we're fixed in the inside? No, we're not fixed. But we sort of have that illusion that we are fixed, and we go about our merry way, and we still eat the food that we're eating. Not the case. If you have high blood pressure and it's being controlled by medication, you have sick arteries. You're sick on the inside. So it's something to look at. And in this country, the doctors tend to, once they put you on high blood pressure medication, as a rule, not always, they want to always keep you on it. They don't want to take you off. Well, how about talking to our doctors and educating them and saying, I'm going to change my diet. Will you please monitor my blood pressure as I change my diet and see if we can get me off the blood pressure medication? Wouldn't that be an amazing thing to go in there? Not long ago, it was last weekend, not last week, the weekend before, I spoke before many chiropractors. I was a presenter. And they are healthcare professionals, and they tout that they're the leaders in healthcare, especially being more natural health. And I have to say, when I came back here, I realized who the leaders really are in healthcare and taking responsibility for your bodies. You're the leaders. Not them. Most of our healthcare professionals, really and truly, they have their little niche. And that's all they have is their little niche. But to see health as a whole and to do something about that and be able to walk their talk and live their talk and understand what makes up health are not the chiropractors necessarily, although a few probably are, but you're the leaders. That's a gift. And it's a responsibility. But if you're sitting in this room, that means that you have enough interest to really be the leader in that and really influence other people around you by walking your talk, by living your talk, by getting your life in line with where your intentions are, getting your life in line with what you know in your heart is the right thing to do. That's the trick. Not knowing this information, we know this. The trick is getting your life in line with what you know to be right. That's the trick. But is there anything more powerful? Is there anything more powerful than taking responsibility for your own life? No. So obviously if we have hypertension, it means our heart is working too hard. Pretty simple. So we get 4 times the number of heart attacks if you have hypertension, even if you're on medications. 7 times the strokes. 50 million Americans, they suggest, have hypertension. 30%, now it's 33% of the population, 68% are aware, 54% are treated, 7%, or that's not true, 27% is under control, only 50% are seniors. That means 50% of people with high blood pressure are under the age of 65. We get high blood pressure if we get too much fluid in our body. our volume, fluid volume increases. If our heart, and then our heart has to beat harder, and then our blood vessels get stiffer. You know, the lining of our blood vessels, the walls get stiffer, right? And also, if we have too much, like I call it sludge, in our blood, and our heart has to beat really hard to get the blood to all parts of our body. So that's resistance. You get resistance in the vessels too. The blood pressure is all about lifestyle choices. All about lifestyle choices. All about what you're choosing to do. I have found several studies that have said this, that have suggested this. Is it true? I don't know. Just what these studies have said. Hypertensive drugs, when you have blood pressure between 140 and 159, top number, between 90 and 99, are not effective in preventing deaths. But we have the illusion that they are. They may lower artificially your blood pressure, but that doesn't mean they're, what? Correcting what's going on the inside. Are those studies accurate? I don't know if they're accurate. I think they're probably accurate. I can't find it. So what is the cure for high blood pressure and heart disease? I mean, you know, simple is brilliant and brilliant is simple, and I don't get more brilliant than that. You know, it's pretty simple, and if my smarts is in trying to get the complex, and all of a sudden you just boil it down to what? You want to do something about what you've got or what you're going to get? Then let's start eating correctly and fill up on fruits and vegetables and do that first. Does that mean that I expect you to give up pizzas and burgers? No way. No, I don't expect you to do anything. I've worked with people too long. I've learned not to expect of other people. I have no right to do that, to judge, or to have expectations. But this is what I do expect. Let's get this down. What I would love for you to do is go home and look in the mirror and are you happy with yourself? Are you happy with yourself? Or are you tired? Are you tired of being tired? Are you tired of being overweight? Are you tired of not having energy? I mean, really look in the mirror and say, are you happy with yourself? If you honestly say, no matter what you look like, it doesn't matter. What matters is, well, how you feel about yourself. Are you happy about yourself? If you are, I think that's awesome. Then great. If you aren't, then do something about it. And as you do something about it, because as you do it step by step by step by step by step, and you do something about it more and more and more and more, it's an amazing, empowering kind of a thing. You open up doors of awareness, and the more doors of awareness open up. Is it a struggle? Is it hard to get through those doors? Absolutely. It's really hard. It's really a struggle to get through those doors. Is it worth it? Is that person on the top of your handout worth it? Look at it. Who's the person on the top of your handout? Is that person on the top of your handout worth it? I think absolutely. Who's going to miss it because you have a premature death because you decided not to take care of yourself? That's all we have to do is think about that one person and say, I want to stay alive for this one person. This one person needs me and I need this one person. So think of that one person. Keep that one person in the forefront of your brain. I have 3 children, but I can think of one child that needs me more than the other 2 children. I think it's probably like that for all of us moms. We can always think of one person. So look in the mirror and figure out, are you happy with yourself? Diabetes, I'm just going to skim over because next time in July, I'm doing a whole hour on just diabetes. So let's save most of diabetes for that. So, but 300,000 of us die of diabetes now. 4th leading killer is diabetes. There's 16 million Americans that are unaware of it, 16 million pre-diabetics, 2 to 4 times the heart disease and stroke if you have diabetes. The weight has increased in the last 10 years. Our weight has increased by 60%, and so is diabetes. It goes hand in hand. Diabetes is a numbers game. 600% diabetes has increased in the last 30 years. This is often called the sweet sickness, as it's known, and these are the things that it causes: blindness, stroke, kidney failure, amputations, heart disease, atherosclerosis, premature aging, early death, and nerve damage. Blindness, stroke, and kidney failure, they occur from amputations, not the stroke. The blindness, kidney failure, and amputations are mostly caused by diabetes. Diabetes, and I'm going to explain this in detail in next month, but it has to do with this. I don't know if you can see this. The glucose builds up in your system because the insulin doesn't, the insulin is responsible for piggybacking the glucose into the cells, because we don't want to have a lot of extra sugar glucose running around in our blood. So it's the insulin that's produced by the pancreas that piggybacks the glucose into your cells. There's a lot of reasons why the insulin can't do that anymore, and so the glucose builds up in your blood, and so does the insulin, by the way. And one of the reasons is because of this. Fat is the biggest culprit in diabetes. It is not refined carbohydrates. It is fat. Fat in our bodies and fat in our diet. Fat makes the insulin less effective, and it also lines the cell, so the insulin cannot bring the glucose into the cells. So fat is really the biggest culprit. And there's a 1-to-1 ratio. And if you are 30 pounds overweight, or about 30 pounds overweight, BMI of 30, your chances of getting diabetes type 2 is 3,000%, those who don't have that. If you have a BMI of 40, it's morbidly obese. So you have to check with your doctor. Your chance of getting diabetes type 2 is 6,000%. So the first one, if you're just 30 pounds overweight, your relative risk factor increases by 3,000%. To give you an idea, the correlation between smoking and between lung cancer is 2,000%. So it's a huge correlation. Fat is the biggest culprit in all the diseases, actually. This just shows us how when you have a plant-based diet, this is one study that was done over 3 months, plant-based diet, blood sugar went down by 59%, cholesterol went down by 59%, 16 pounds went down off of most people, and the medications were either disappeared or they went down. What happened with the American Diabetic Association? Nothing. Nothing. People got worse because they don't do enough. They do it in moderation. It's the moderation thing. But if you do have diabetes, these are the things not to eat. And I'm not one to talk about what not to do. I always talk about what to do and what you can fill up on and what you can add. But in diabetes, not much wiggle room when you have diabetes. You don't want to mess with it. It's a dangerous disease. And so these are the kinds of things: refined sugars, processed foods, salt, fats, oils, meat, dairy, eggs, nuts, not too many nuts, limited amount of avocados, some sweets, fruit, juices, and dried fruit we should avoid. I think this is my favorite disease, the yeah but disease. And one of our biggest yeah buts is, yeah, but I'm genetically predisposed to getting cancer because I have cancer in my family. Oh yeah, but I'm genetically predisposed to getting diabetes. And so we kind of blame that, don't we? And this is one of the things that Dr. Dougal and I always say is this, is that genetics loads the gun, you pull the trigger. 95% of our chronic diseases are caused by what we do to our bodies. It's only 5% genetics. That's what the geneticists tell us. So yes, we do have, obviously, a predisposition getting certain diseases. But in order for them to really manifest and become full-blown, it's because of what we've done to our bodies. And it starts from the time we're really little. So the biggest, scariest disease of all, of course, is cancer. I don't know. You know, it's just a freaky disease. It's freaky. My mother was diagnosed with having that about 6 years ago, and so far she's okay, but cancer's funny. You just never know, do we? We never know if it's inside. We don't know if it's growing. We don't know if it's going to pop up, and we just don't know. So it's a very emotional kind of disease for myself as well. I've had people, my grandmother died when she was 55 of colon cancer. That was my mother's mother. So I hardly knew her. I was just a little tiny when she died. And my mom has been diagnosed with having that too. So it's freaky, and I think it's freaky for all of us. But let's look at cancer for a minute. What is cancer anyway? Do we get what cancer is? Like, cancer is when the cells don't do what they're supposed to do. And so if you have too many of those cells, they don't do what they're supposed to do, and they take over. Well, that's, when tissues are destroyed and we're destroyed. But it comes in 3 phases. You have the initiation phase. Initiation means that, it's sort of like your yard. Think of think of your lawn. So the initiation phase is when you just plant seeds. And they say that we all have cancer seeds or cancer cells in our body. But what keeps them at that seed stage is the environment within your body. And that has to do with what we eat and what we put into our body, and the carcinogenics that we also eat, and those things that proliferate cancer. And then the next phase is promotion. So all of a sudden those seeds sprout. And so that's promotion. It's in that phase. We have seeds all the time. You don't have to worry about that. But when it's in promotion, lots of times when it's in promotion, that is reversible. And that process goes on when we're not even aware of it. But it's when it goes into the next stage, progression, when it starts going to other places in the body too. It's when the crabgrass takes over, and it takes over everything. It goes up the sidewalk, in the cracks, all over the place. That's when it's too late. So what we need to do is create an environment with our body where those seeds can't sprout. And so that's creating an environment with what? Fruits and vegetables and grains and beans, and not eating all those foods that create an environment that contribute to cancer. And that is coffee, that is alcohol, that is smoking, that is hydrogenated fat, that is all the oils that we eat, it's the sugar, the salt, and all those kinds of things. We need to really create an environment with fruits and vegetables and plants within our environment in order to create an environment where the cancer cells don't grow, they don't proliferate. That is really important. Colon cancer, at least 55,000 of us die every year. For females, when we eat red meat daily as opposed to one time a month, our chance of getting colon cancer goes up by 25%. Red meat once a week versus none, it goes up by 38%. If we eat chicken, this is how chicken is not necessarily better for us than red meat. Chicken, our chances of getting that goes up 200 to 300% versus if you eat chicken 4 times a week versus not eating it at all. Eating poultry, which is chicken and turkey, of course, our chances go up by 55% by eating it 1 time a week. 1 time a week. When I was a kid, we had it twice a week. That was cheaper and better than beef, kind of. And of course, breast cancer is a scary cancer for women and a very emotional cancer for women. But in 1970, 1 in 20 were diagnosed. Today it's 1 in 7 and 1 in 8. It has really gone up. In spite of all the parades and all the fundraisers and all the publicity, it's amazing how much that has gone up. In the United States, 22.4% of women per 100,000 get breast cancer. In China, it's 4.6%. Has to do with their diets. But China will catch up with us if we keep feeding China our food. Genetics, it's 5% genetics. That's all, 5%. Breast cancer has to do with how much estrogen is in the body over the course of a woman's lifetime. And it has to do with the weight and the fat and the hormones and oral contraceptives and when they got their periods and when we go through menopause. It has to do with the estrogen levels. What raises our estrogen levels, besides these things, are dairy products and meat products. It doesn't matter if they're naturally raised, organically raised, because anytime you have an animal, it still has hormones in it, just like we have hormones in it. So we're still eating the hormones even though it's raised organically. So just because it's organic, it doesn't have extra hormones, does that mean it doesn't have hormones? It's contributing and fueling cancers that are hormonally driven cancers, like breast cancer and prostate cancer for men, pancreatic cancer and colon cancer, lung cancer too. And alcohol, toxic chemicals, and I'll give you a list coming up here. Prostate cancer is the leading killer cancer in men for men who don't smoke. So it's the leading cancer. What's interesting is the little phrase that they say is in cancer in the United States, men die because of prostate cancer. In China, the men die with it. In other words, it can be a very slow-growing kind of a cancer, not a big deal thing. In China, 1 out of 100,000 die. In the United States, it's 1 in 10. That's a huge difference. It has to do with choices and lifestyle. So these are the things that increase your cancer risk. Meat and dairy, fat, cholesterol. They have meat and dairy products because they're high in fat, high in cholesterol, high in animal protein. There's a big correlation between animal protein, not just the fat and the cholesterol, that's related to cancer and causing the environment in which cancer cells can grow. Increase in calories in meat and dairy, increase in hormones, and the decrease in fiber and nutrients and enzymes. Oils and fats, they're hugely contributory to cancer. Cancer loves fat. And that includes olive oil, includes regular any kind of oil. Oils that are processed, we don't need any oils. It adds fat to your fat and it creates an environment that creates diseases. Vegetables, vegetable fats, and the vegetable oils anyway, the trans fat and the hydrogenated fats, they're contributory to cancer. Also alcohol and coffee and being overweight and radiation and toxic chemicals, lack of exercise, and smoking. The American Institute of Cancer. You know, this is not some fly-by-night organization. These are the people that know. Say that 67% of all cancers are preventable. That's a conservative number. I know it's a conservative number, but that's what they say. Preventable by 3 things. Exercise, not smoking, and the most important one, as they say, is this: a plant-based diet. So those are not these crazy people who are just proponents of vegetable, fruit-based, vegetable-based diet. These are normal kinds of regular established institutions. American Institute of Cancer. T. Colin Campbell, who wrote this book right here, which is one of the most amazing books. If you ever want to learn more about cancer, what causes cancer and heart disease, this is an excellent book to read, The China Study by T. Colin Campbell. Says this: the vast majority of all cancer, cardiovascular, heart, and vascular diseases and degenerative illness can be prevented by a plant-based diet. Our government, United States Public Health Service, this is a report in 2000, says that 54% of the deaths in the United States are caused by meat. That's what our government tells us. Do you hear that in commercials? Never. Never. Oh my gosh. Why don't they advertise this? Why don't they advertise fruits and vegetables? It's money. It's money driven, and we love the foods that we love to eat, and we don't care, kind of. So we need to take a stance and say, I understand that the government's in bed with the dairy industry and the meat industry and the cereal industry and the sugar industry. I understand that. I am not going to eat this food anymore or limit it. Limit it. And go in steps and transition to a better place. But these are the diseases that are related directly to eating meat, so says the United States government. I think it's pretty profound, that statement. So we can do one of 2 things when it comes to diseases. Wow. We can do one of 2 things when it comes to diseases. You can think subtraction and say, oh, I shouldn't eat this. Watch this. Oh, I shouldn't have any animal products anymore. I shouldn't have any dairy products. I shouldn't have the 5 deadly whites, which are white sugar and salt and flour and rice and refined oils. I can't have any refined, processed, man-made, fried, packaged, canned food anymore. I can't have any hydrogenated fat, which is in almost all packaged foods, or trans fat. So after, we get sort of boggled and we go, oh my gosh, what's left to eat? There's nothing to eat, because that's what we were raised on, eating these kinds of things. So instead of thinking subtraction, forget all that. you delete it, cross it all out, pretend you're on a computer. And for us, those of us who are not technologically savvy, just wipe it out of your brain, and you think addition. So that's the positive. So you think addition. What can you add to your day that's going to help you prevent or get better those things that you have in your body going on? What are the things you can add that are not that hard? Fruits and vegetables. Let's add those foods. And if you fill up more on those foods, guess what? Then you don't have enough room for the other foods. But the trick is you have to fill up on the good stuff first. So you fill up on the good stuff first, and then you start graduating and gravitating away from the bad stuff. So it becomes sort of a natural kind of a thing. Instead of saying, I cannot ever eat those foods again. Because as soon as we do that, that little kid brat in us that says, we're adult, I can eat anything I want. You can eat anything you want, but I want you, as you're eating things that are not good for you and that are the proponents and causers of cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and stroke, and all kinds of other diseases, you look at the name you put on the front of your handout and get connected in with that name and say, I want to live, I want to stay alive for that person. You want to stay alive first for yourself, but then also for that person. What can you add? You can add vegetables, you can have fruits, you can have whole grains, you can have beans, you can have do raw nuts, not that many. If you're trying to lose weight, if you have diabetes, nuts and seeds, your fresh homemade juices. So let's think addition. What can we add to our day? If you add and fill up on the best food for you first, then we sort of stay away from those other foods. So these are the questions to ask yourself. When you're alone and you're by yourself, and you figure it out for yourself. It's not for your husband, it's not for your wife, it's not for your mother, it's not for anybody else. Just ask the questions for yourself and say this. These are, if you have a piece of paper, write them down. So think about, where are you now? Are you where you want to be? Are you where you want to be? Can you honestly look in the mirror and say, I am where I want to be right now? So where are you now? Then where do you want to be? And the third question is, and what is keeping you from getting there? What in yourself is keeping you from getting to the place that you want to be? Those are important life transformational questions. So where are you now? Where do you want to be? And what is keeping you from getting there? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Do you want to be alive for the person on the front of your handout? If you do, what's keeping you from getting to that place you want to be? And then a couple more. How do you feel about where you are? How do you feel about yourself? Because the bottom line is we want to feel good about ourselves. If we can live feeling good about ourselves, that's a huge thing. And number two, how do you feel about staying where you are forever? Or how do you feel about continuing to spiral down? So you start looking at those kinds of questions. You start really thinking about those questions. And where are you going to be in 5 years and 10 years? And knowing that you will be one of those statistics unless you start doing something about it now. And that you can do something about it. That's the most extraordinary part. You can do something about it so that you can get better and better from the inside out, because our bodies are very healing and very, very self-regulating. And then the most extraordinary thing, I think, and as you get better in yourself, you know what happens? You start helping other people around you. Not by preaching or by judging or expecting, but by just being examples. I think that's an extraordinary thing when we can do that. Eleanor wrote me a letter, right, Eleanor? Wrote me a letter, and I was going to bring it, but I forgot it, actually. And can I say, Eleanor? Can I say what was in your letter? She went to the doctor, and she's been doing really well, and she's been following me for years and years. Thank you, Eleanor. But she went to the doctor. The doctor told her cholesterol was too high. And so Eleanor decided that she was wiggling a little bit too much. And so one of the things that she was doing, may I say, Eleanor? Is that okay? Can you hear me? No. Now. Okay. One of the things that she was doing, she was drinking lattes every day. Well, the doctor wanted, no, wait a minute. The doctor wanted to lower cholesterol with medication, and Eleanor, being the rebellious, independent woman that she is, says, no, I don't want to do that. I want to try to do it with my diet. And the doctor said, okay, apparently, or didn't say okay, but Eleanor decided to do that anyway. And so one of the things she stopped doing was stop drinking her lattes, which she did every day, and then she stopped doing a couple of the things that she didn't say in the letter, and then within, it was less than 3 months, her cholesterol had dropped by 40 points. 49 points. I was rounding off. I don't do addition, well, subtraction. 49 points. 49 points. So not only does that do something to the cholesterol level, but what does it do to the fat level? What does it do to the atherosclerosis within her body? What does that do for Eleanor? It's a huge thing. Huge thing. And Eleanor is not 30 years old. Eleanor is a lovely woman, looks wonderful, quote unquote, no matter what age she is. But she's not a 30-year-old who we think that healing just goes on in 30-year-old people. It's not so. As long as we can get out of bed and take nourishment, you know what? Healing goes on within our own bodies. There's always, 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 always hope. That's the most wonderful thing about it, is that we don't have to go down the same path that most 4 out of 5 Americans do. We could be not in that 4 out of 5 Americans right here, all the people in this room, if we decide to do something about it right now. And some of us don't have really that much time because we're a little bit older, so therefore we don't have time to mess around with this. You need to be on the accelerated course. You can't do that much wiggle room. So it's important that we just take self-control and say, I want to stay alive for that one person on my sheet. And on that front of your handout, and by the way, we do these handouts on purpose to give you extra information. You go home and read them. It starts building up your information. So what's the one action step that you can do? I'll give you an idea. If you open this up, you know, my team and I have been doing motivational health presentations for a long time. We've been working with the food thing and weight loss for years and years, and I've taught it. I think now we've gotten to a point where we have a pretty good package. And a lot of it's free. A lot of it's free. So there's a lot you can do for no money at all. It just takes some effort. So I want you to open up to the purple, yes. So as I read this, if it twigs something in your brain, something that you can do, do it. So these are 7 gotta gets. If you want to take control of your life right now and try not to get those diseases, these are 7 gotta gets. And you might pick one. You might not pick 7, but pick one out of the 7. Number 1, my goodness, you can get the book, the book that I wrote, which is called Getting Into Your Pants. Now, if that had fruit and vegetables on the front of it, it would not be a marketing splash, would it? It says Getting Into Your Pants for obvious reasons. But it's all about getting into your pants. All about feeling good about yourself. And it really takes all the complex information and simplifies it so that it's easy to understand. And that's kind of why I did it, to make it simpler. But you could get that. And tonight we sell it for $25 instead of $18.99 and $11.99. We always try to give you deals on that. You can also get some expert guidance. So you can have a consultation with me, 10% consultation with me. Normally those are $250. On this slip of paper says it's $67. So that's an hour with me. I go over what you eat, and then we redesign, we create an eating plan that works for you. Something that's doable for you, not for me, something that's doable for you. That's normally, and at the presentations we offer them for $67. Tonight we offer it for $29. If you've already had one, it's still a really good deal because follow-ups are more than that. And you also get the book with it. The books, because you have to have the tools. You have to have tools in order to get better. So the book costs, the package costs $25. It's $25. And then you get me with that for an extra $4. If you already have the book, you give it to somebody else. Give it to somebody else. So you get the book and my services for an hour for $4. It's $29, but my services on top of that is $4. So you can come to a health forum. The week following all the presentations, we have a health forum in my office, which are also free. So there's a lot of free things. Come to the forum. We only have 18 chairs. So if you want to come to the forum, you sign up with Katie or Carrie when you leave. Those are free, and those are fun. It's not me standing up in front of you. It's us sitting in a round circle, and what I do is have a planned program, but I answer your questions. It's interactive, it's lively, and it's just fun. It is just fun, and you learn a lot. Anybody have gone to those? Are they fun, Ann? Yes. Yeah, they're fun, and we learn a lot. So come to that. We only have so many spots, so if you want to come to that, come. The other thing is plan on coming to the presentations. I know it takes effort, it takes time, it takes energy, and who wants to go out at 6:30 at night when we all just want to go home? I want to go home after work myself. But we need to work on our bodies, and you get information, inspiration from coming to these presentations and any other presentations that you see in the community. Our next one's July 13th, Diabetes 2, the Med-Free Solution. So I really concentrate on the diabetes aspect of it because there's an awful lot of type 2 diabetes out there. You can also have a lot of fun. You can come to our pants party. We now have a support group, a weight loss support group, and I'm sorry, men, but we've turned it in just for women. We just did that this week. Actually, I don't know if you guys even know that. You don't even know that. Because we just have women in it right now, and it works well with just women. I don't know how else or better to say it. You know what, to be honest, what man would want to be there anyway? Yeah. So anyway, so we really have a great group of women. It's so amazingly powerful. I just can't even tell you. And I've never been a group person, ever been a group person, but this is amazingly powerful. So if you want some support, that's a good place to come to. Also, make the commitment to go to these presentations. And then number 7, action steps. So you're going to have one action step you're going to write down on the front of this thing right here. One action step. One action step that you decide to commit to. Who wants to share one with me right now? One action step. Anybody write one down? Something that you've committed to. Ann, did you write one down?
No, I didn't. I'm doing so many already.
That you're already doing it?
Yeah, there's...
Anybody write one down? What? What'd you say?
Omit pastries.
Omit pastries.
Walk.
A walk. See? Easy. Eat a salad for lunch every day. That's in my 10-10 plan. That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. I don't know what I would do without that salad. Any other commitments? I mean, that's, you see, you start there. That's huge. Exercising every day is walking every day is too. Not eating those kinds of foods too are huge. So action steps. So action step, put the 3 rules in my 10-10 plan. 1, the first one is fill up on the best foods for you first, fruits and vegetables. Number 2, stop eating when your brain tells you stop eating. Stop eating, dear. I used to say, stop eating, you fool. But I decided to be nice to my brain now. Stop eating, dear. Please, stop eating. You have had enough food. Stop eating now. No matter what you're eating, stop eating. And the third was give yourself wiggle room. So give yourself grace. But don't wiggle too much. Don't wiggle too much, because when we wiggle too much, then we're not preventing the diseases we want to prevent. We're not around for the people around us. We'll have a drawing right at the end. So I just ask you to please think about the fences. Think about the fences, and think about how much easier it is to build the fences than to wait till we fall and then we're picked up by the ambulances down below. And think about how much your life is worth to the people around you. Think about how much your life is worth to the person on the front of your handout. How much does that person mean to you? And are you willing to take the steps it takes? And it takes patience and time and energy, and you get frustrated and you get discouraged. But that doesn't mean that you quit. The only slip up is to give up. So if you didn't get a bracelet, get a bracelet that says the only slip up is to give up. I don't have one right here. The only slip up is to give up. So don't give up. Don't give up on yourself, and just revel in the fact that you're the most unique, brilliant human being on the planet. I mean, it's really true. And you just need to shine your brilliance and shine your uniqueness on the people around you. And you do that as you shed the layers on the inside of yourself. Eat better and better. Take responsibility for your life so that you're able to shine your brilliance on the world. So I thank you for coming, and please come next time in July for the diabetes program. Thank you.